On a cold winter day in Kentucky, not all the leaves of Louisville are gone with the wind. Some are climbing the walls. A steel squirrel is drawn to the light of glowing acorns hanging amid the creeping vines. It could only happen in the wrought iron world of blacksmith Craig Kaviar.
It's almost magical in some ways.
Blacksmithing is in Craig's blood. His great-grandfather was a blacksmith in Russia. Craig never knew him, but he was always drawn to the arts. During high school in New York, he was an apprentice to a sculptor. Then, 25 years ago,
when I started to go to art school in Boston, I took a wonderful class on art of non-literal societies. And in it, I realized I wanted to make some different kinds of tools that weren't readily available.
He learned to use the school forge, and he's been a blacksmith ever since. Today, Craig is working on a computer desk that will combine disciplined geometry with random nature. He's weaving a shelf for the desk. But unlike a weaver of cloth or baskets, Craig needs a few spot welds to hold his pattern in place.
Sometimes you can see the pattern doesn't stay perfectly square. You have a lot of different variables, but I'm not making a machine perfect thing, and so the slight variables I feel sort of give it some life.
When the weave is complete, he pounds it flat. Craig cuts the excess away, and he's ready to wrap the weave around the frame. For the first 4 wraps, he must heat the metal to bend it.
If I tried to bend the initial ones cold, it would move the metal all over the place because when you bend it, it exerts tremendous force on the piece.
The rest of the wrapping moves quickly. Craig's no-nonsense checkerboard provides a unique contrast to the playful vines and leaves that will soon grow behind it. When we come back, keeping the fire of an ancient art alive.
One of the nice things about blacksmiths is that there's a great sharing of the trade.
When Modern Masters continues. Craig Kaviar has forged his career from a craft that all but disappeared in the last century.
Blacksmiths have almost died out. The skills and technology had been replaced by industry.
That's one reason why, like many blacksmiths, Craig is willing to share the secrets behind his masterpieces.
I've seen a whole generation of smiths sort of grow up and learn, along with myself, a whole vocabulary of skill that was almost entirely lost to mankind. And the fact that we have all shared the technique with one another has really helped that.
This time, he's sharing the technique he uses to grow a leaf and vine from a single rod. At 2,000 degrees Fahrenheit, the forge releases the magic within the metal.
It's sort of a very fluid moment. You know, the saying that you strike it while it's hot comes from blacksmithing terms, and the metal is most malleable when you first pull it out of the fire, and you move quickly and you hit it hard and you get a radical change.
To imprint veins into the leaf, Craig has designed his own veining block, an idea that came to him while making a fence.
Previously, I took a chisel and chiseled each vein in one at a time, and I had to make thousands of leaves for that. And so while I was developing a new pattern, I also came up with a whole new method of making it. It was more efficient.
He uses a V-block and chisel to make the central vein and put a crease in the leaf. He moves to the anvil to open the leaf and give it a more lifelike shape. Next, he coaxes the vine to grow longer as he pounds it into a gnarled pattern.
It's basic physics. When you narrow the circumference or the radius of the material, it stretches it longer. You have the same amount of mass.
The rod was about 3 feet long, but it grows into a 6-foot vine. And no vine is complete until it does a little twist.
It's a dirty, hard, sweaty job, and most people don't like it. And for those who do, there's a world of pleasure in it.
Craig is not just a blacksmith, but a gardener who coaxes life from metal.
The metal, as you saw me form today, sort of grows and has a vocabulary of its own.
3 weeks later, the metal speaks volumes as the computer desk is planted in a new home. With it, Craig sows another seed in the growing craft movement, which he sees as today's source for fine art in America.
I think the relationship that a craftsman has to their clients and people in general, that interrelationship helps keep the artist grounded and helps the work relate to other humans, which I think is an important aspect of artistic work.
Craig Kaviar's work may be grounded, but if so, it is in magical soil, from which metal beanstalks twist upward toward imaginary places.
His village is Louisville's East End, and he doesn't make horseshoes, but his trade has become an art.
If this is Kentucky, and Craig Kaviar is a blacksmith, this must be a horseshoe story, right? Wrong.
Did you ever make a horseshoe?
I made one once. Just to say that I made one.
What Craig Kaviar is about is architectural and decorative ironwork. His coal-fired forge is just now getting heated up in Louisville after Kaviar's 10 years as a blacksmith sculptor in Massachusetts. He and assistant Stephen Scott turn out candelabra and chandeliers, fireplace tools, and sculpture on commission. It can be massive or as delicate as a wrought iron rose. This is hot stuff. How hot is it? 2,800 degrees Fahrenheit.
The steel is a very unforgiving metal. When you have it cold, it is solid and it doesn't want to move, and if you try to move it, you can break it. But when you bring it up to the great temperatures that this cold fire can bring it, it's as malleable as butter, and it's a little bit harder to move than butter, but you can move it in all kinds of directions and have almost unlimited amount of creative potential.
Kaviar comes by his work honestly. His great-grandfather was a wheelwright and blacksmith in 19th century Russia. Craig has made most of his tools himself. Besides turning out all the sculpture and decorative pieces like this gate and lamppost, Craig Kaviar has also mastered the almost lost art of saw blade hammering. Careful striking brings the huge blade back into proper tension.
Whenever I hammer, one counteracts the other. So I have to look at the whole picture of this flat plane and work a little bit here and a little bit there so that it all comes approximately together.
The 31-year-old Kaviar, heir to a long and proud tradition, sees his role as part tradesman and part artist.
There is a spirit in the metal. It comes alive when it's wrought, when the hammer marks are left on the metal.
John Graham is learning about heavy metal this morning, right?
Uh-oh.
Yeah, heavy metal. Check this out.
We're here with Craig. Actually, let me turn this over to the master. Craig's the one who really knows what he's doing. Whoa! We are at Kaviar Forge. Craig is an artist who works in metal, blacksmith who's moved beyond horseshoes. We're going to be talking to him all throughout the show today and tell you about an exhibition of local metal artists coming up at the Art and Crafts Museum. So come on back. It's all ahead. Wow! On Fox in the Morning.
I bet that's hot.
Oh, just a tad.
Well, how hot is it there in the forge there, Craig?
It's hot enough to melt steel, which is over 3,000 degrees.
Over 3,000 degrees? And it's just that little thing is what cranks out the heat. What are you going to do right there?
I'm forging a bronze leaf for a piece of sculpture.
Okay, let me get out of the way. We'll watch that for a second. Craig was telling me earlier that this air hammer there, I guess you would call it, is actually from I believe an aircraft carrier. It's a ship. It weighs about 7 tons, and he had it transported here from, oh shoot, I think he said Texas or somewhere points further south.
Specialize in forged metalwork, and I use tools and techniques that actually go back to the Stone Age, because Stone Age man actually forged copper and lead and came up with the basic anvils and hammers. So I use very traditional techniques to create a naturalistic and contemporary art form. The metal naturally forms in a very organic way, and so when you heat it up red hot, it becomes, I wouldn't say it's as soft as butter, but it becomes very, very malleable, and you can take it and look like you're squishing clay with it. And then when it cools, it hardens once again, and so I like to play with that kind of softness that you can create in the iron after, and then have it be this incredibly strong material thereafter. And so it allows you to do a lot of things that you can't do with other medium, both in strength and style.
The power hammer was made for a battleship during World War II, and the press I got from the ammo plant over in Indiana. So I consider this my little plows to, swords into plowshares, that I'm creating these old tools of war for peaceful artistic use.
I grew up on Long Island, and while I was in high school, I made a decision to pursue the arts, and I apprenticed with a sculptor. His name was Philip Darling, and worked with him after I graduated high school. And then I went on to art school in Boston. And while I was in art school in Boston, I met a blacksmith who influenced me to pursue forged metal work and thereby be able to create a living by making functional art. I had my first professional job in 1976. I moved to Kentucky in 1984 with my wife. She had a job here, and so we came to Kentucky and we really enjoyed it. I purchased this property in '85, and it was a terrible mess. I had a $20,000 dumpster bill. That's almost half of what I paid for the property. I'm working on several handrail projects at the moment, one of which is for Norton's Hospital New Cancer Center. It will bring people from the center into their healing garden. I'm also working on a very large handrail job for a private residence in LaGrange. I also do chandeliers. Over here there's a chandelier similar to the one I did at Woodford Reserve Distillery with a corn theme. And I do a lot of furniture. There's a couple of pieces that have polished concrete here in the gallery, and I also do a lot of pieces that have glass tops. Again, some of the pieces I incorporate leaves and birds and naturalist type things in. Being able to take such a strong material and manipulate it, heat it up and hammer it, I guess I like playing with fire. You'll see when I go into the forge, I run my forge on waste vegetable oil, which is both more economical than natural gas and also better for the environment. So I like the physicality, I like and I like the creativity. You know, you come up with new ideas all the time and you get to express them. I struggled for many, many years and had a very hard time. And although I feel like I'm very successful now, I spent many, many years in great worry and you know, working very hard and not being able to pay my bills. And so it's, as opposed to leap of faith, it was just pure stubbornness that enabled me to finally make a go of it.